بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء وسيد المرسلين حبيب قلوبنا وطبيب نفوسنا صاحب السكينة المدفونة في المدينة المبعوث رحمة للعالمين أبو القاسم محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين وبعد ولعنة دائما على أعدائهم أجمعين من الآن إلى يوم قيام الدين. قال الله جل جلاله في محكم كتابه الكريم: بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ولقد ضربنا للناس في هذا القرآن من كل مثل لعلهم يتذكرون. آمنا بالله. صدق الله العلي العظيم. صلى على محمد وآل محمد. Brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. The verse in which I read was from Surah Al-Zumar, chapter 39, verse 27, where God says, وَلَقَدْ ضَرَبْنَا لِلنَّاسِ, that we have gave them examples to the people through what? في هذا القرآن لكل مثل, for every similitude, so that they may remember. Remember what? We'll get to very shortly. Basically, the Quran, in this very powerful verse, has gone straight to that of humanity, that you have no excuse, no matter what century you live, because remember there's a book that was written over 1,400 years ago, that this book, according to the divine wording of this book, has given you every single example that you need in order to be a servant of God. No matter if it's going to be a change in technology or advancement in human progress, there is an example, and what type of example we'll talk about very shortly. When you look at history, especially that of technology, there was a movie back in 1983 called War Games, where they pretend in this fictional movie that they have this machine or this computer called the WOPR, W-O-P-R, meaning the World or the War Operations Response Program. And this machine is supposed to predict that if there's going to be a World War III, and of course they named Russia there, that what is our response as Americans? What is our response? Our counterattack? How many casualties we're going to lose, and the destruction, and so forth. But then the man, if you see it, like it's this massive computer, and the man says, but it's got one fault. He says, what's that? He says, the final decision comes of that of a human. Yeah, and sometimes they show you the movies where they've got to turn the key at the same time, and then someone gets an authority for someone else, and finally they get the okay to push the button. Another example we can give, back in 1988, the USS warship, the Vincennes, shot down an Iranian passenger airline, killing 290 innocent people. They claim to mistakenly taken it for a fighter jet. Later on, they did investigations, and they found that the computer itself, they reckon, this was their version, that the computer itself actually gave the right information, but it was misinterpreted by the commander, who still gave the okay to fire that missile. You're saying, what's this got to do with what we're talking about today? Well, if you can pick up what I'm trying to get to, you understand when we put the bits and pieces together. Lastly, another example, 1945. The world experiences one of the greatest ever tragedies that fell upon humans, and that was the dropping of the bomb of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. That person that dropped it, that His name was Paul Tibbet or Peter Tibbet. Well, this person, later on he was interviewed, because remember when this happened in August the 6th, 1945, upon the dropping of the bomb, 80,000 people were annihilated, not including the people that died years after from the burns and the construction, the endless damage. And of course, and then that was on August the 6th, August the 9th, they threw another bomb. He wasn't part of it, but threw another atomic bomb, even though by then Japan had already surrendered. So they still threw another bomb in the other city of Nagasaki, if I can pronounce it right. Yeah, and they killed another 40,000 people on his first drop, and of course, endless thousands after. This person, when they interviewed him, he said, "I got no regret." And then he explained, a human being, they're supposed to have feelings, that he explained that as I dropped the bomb, I saw the sky light up with these beautiful colors. Like, he's trying to say now that even though I just was part of the murder of so many innocent people, it still looked beautiful to me in that plane. So, and he had no regret. So when we look at technology, these three examples I gave you, even though that technology had advanced, at the end of the day, it was what? It was the computer that pushed the button. It was the computer that made the decision. It was technology that said, okay, do this. Or was it human? It was a human decision at the end that made these type of final outcomes. So yes, technology has brought us forth, but at the same time, with technology, there's many vices that still are within ourselves from when Adam was created to the Khatam of the Holy Prophet ﷺ until the Day of Judgment. No matter how much we advance, these vices within our human being self are going to exist. Because once a human being replaces the true ethics that God Almighty had intended a human being to have and follows his own egos and passions, then of course you will get outcomes like this. You will get people that murder millions of people for the sake of their own power. You'll get greed, you'll get envy, pride. All this will come because there is no fear of a day of judgment. There is no fear there is a God. All they see themselves is that they see the power inside of them, the power of what we say, the quwwa al-ghadabi or quwwa shahwi, the power of anger and intellect rules over them. Yes, technology has been a great boost for us. In terms of our communications, the way we communicate is very good these days. I remember in my days, show you how far out it was. I remember there was only one person in the street that had the old dial phone, and we'd go and give them money to use it. And then of course I remember my parents, the day when we first got our own phone, and my dad would actually there was a key on it. He would actually lock it, so we couldn't dial on it because it was actually expensive back then. But technology has given us also advancement in medical field. That, there's many diseases that we can cure now much easier. Our transportation system used to take months before to go from one part to another. Now you can travel in a jet plane or, an A380 passenger airline and be all the way in London in over like 24 hours, 23 hours. Like, this is to show you, before this trip would take months on a boat. But with technology as well, that we've advanced, technology has also its downfall. Because when we look at studies that have been done through universities, that will show you that, for instance, a study done in 2017 at a university showed that people that over-accessed the usage of social media were 3 times more affected by anxiety and depression. While the opposite, while people that were more social, that didn't let the internet and social media get to them, they were people that found they didn't suffer depression and anxiety. And also with technology, we also found that not only did it affect the psychological aspect of an individual, but it also affected that of the physical body, like eye strain. They found that many people will have eye strain because they always get the objects too close to their eyes. Posture of the back. They found that people did less exercise. So there was all these effects through that of technology. But going back to what we said, that through the technology, if used in the right means, and in the right hands, then of course it is a gift from God, because God has said in the Quran, عَلَّمَ الْإِنسَانَ مَا لَمْ يَعْلَمْ, that I taught human beings what they did not know. And if you look at through history, every single prophet, Adam, and then Sheath, or even Nuh, Salih, Hud, as you progressed through technology, through that field, yes, they did have technology through that field. You know, if like, you can imagine from when Adam to when Ibrahim, how many thousands of years came, you know, until Abraham came, Prophet Abraham alayhi salam came, it was known through our narration, the first person to wear sandals, for instance. Still an advancement. You know, Idris was known as the person who made the first clothes, sewed the first clothes. So the prophets advanced. You know, and as we know, we saw in the times of Musa alayhi salam, the pyramids and so forth, there was advancement. But there was something that the prophets came to advance that many people didn't advance in. And that goes back to ethics, morality. The Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi, before he came to teach people anything about their religion, what did he come to teach first? Ethics, morality. Because at the end of the day, you can have the best technology, like we gave the example now, the best technology. But if it's in the hands of people that have no ethics, then it becomes what? Becomes a weapon, becomes something against humanity. It becomes something where a person that probably all the way in Hawaii, United States, sends a drone to Afghanistan or to Yemen or something like that, bombs people he doesn't even know about, kills thousands of people on a touch of technology. Why? Because again, the ethical aspect of this person isn't that of what God has intended for the human race. You know, I remember, and sometimes they justify it. They justify it because at the end of the day, that's their purpose, their pride. You know, we deserve this. We deserve to protect our people. We deserve to make sure there's no threat to us. You know, I remember watching the movie Skull Island, where even though it's fictional, sometimes these fictional movies, they have a very a strong meaning to it. Skull Island, where King Kong and these big creatures live there. Then you get a group of Americans who want to go there and so-called do some study. And they bomb the hell out. When they first come in, they bomb the hell out of the place, which then, you know, gets King Kong and the other animals really angry. Then King Kong, because he feels threatened, kills majority of these soldiers. Then Samuel L. Jackson decides that because he killed my soldiers, I want revenge on him. Hold on a sec, stop here for a sec. Even though it's fiction, who came and started bombing first? What, do you think because you come from a certain place or a certain country gives you the right to destroy what you want, and then you make up an excuse that, no, this animal should have stayed back now and just let us go on with our business. This is the mentality of the human race. So when we look at going back to technology, I remember reading a good, it was like an article or a thesis written by a Dutch professor by the name of Peter Paul de Beek. And he said that these, with technology, is given us the choice to use it, to advance ourselves, to work like, imagine around the house how many bits of technology have helped, even from simple things of cleaning, vacuum cleaners, for instance, and cutting the grass. I'm not saying that, but he says at the end of the day, with the advancement of technology, at the end of the day, if it comes down to the person's choice of how to use it. You see, because at the end of the day, what differs us from animals is the intellect, the aql. And because ethics are something that no computer in the world can teach you how to control your anger. Do you know that? Or no computer in the world can teach you to be kind or to be generous or to be just. The only way you can have these ethics built inside of you is by having an exemplar. And that's why the Quran, this immaculate, perfect, divine book, has said, لَقَدْ كَانَ لَكُمْ فِي رَسُولِ اللَّهِ أُسْوَةً حَسَنَةً لِمَنْ كَانَ يَرْجُ اللَّهَ وَيَوْمَ الْآخِرَةِ. That if you want to be great human beings, great servants, then look at the Holy Prophet. Look at the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam. Because as humans, these ethics, like I said, can only be instilled through people that show us how to instill them and how to show us how to be that of the humankind process. So when I look at myself as a human being, it's like that person that's sitting on a ledge of a mountain. Below him are people, innocent people, and in front of me are bits of pebbles and rocks. I stand on that ledge. I know my knowledge tells me if I fall off, there's gravity. I'm going to fall to my death. By kicking the stones, I could drop a stone that could fall a distance, pick up the speed, of course, of gravity times the weight, and acceleration, fall on someone's head, and kill them. Is that what I'm saying? We are like that person sitting on the edge. That we're going to have knowledge. We're going to know exactly what we're going to do, how we're going to affect the people around us. And these ethics and morality, as we said before, can only be absorbed by people of great quality. Because as we gave examples through Prophet Adam to every other prophet, everyone advanced. But did we not have these vices there before and like now? Wasn't there in the time of Adam someone who had a lot of pride? Wasn't there in the time of Adam someone who was jealous? Wasn't there in the time of Ibrahim someone who said, "Ana rabbukum al-a'la," or in the time of Musa, "I am your Ana rabbukum al-a'la," I am your great Lord? So if you look at through history, everything that we face today and until the day of judgment, these vices are present in people. But it's up to an individual to know, hold on a sec, I am a servant of God. God has given me this point where I can make a choice that I can have certain virtues inside of me that will make me an exemplar myself. It was said once that a person came to a scholar and he said to the scholar, there's a person that can fly. And the scholar said to him, yeah, so what? There's mosquitoes can fly as well. He said, but there's a person we've heard about a person that actually floats on water. And he said, yeah, a piece of wood and an apple can also float on water. So this person said to the scholar, he goes, okay, then what's your perspective about a miracle or something that's great? He said, my perspective about being a miracle is a human being that can walk amongst other human beings and maintain the best of moralities. That a human being, that can walk amongst other human beings and not hurt them, not throw evil on them, not backbite them, not gossip about them, and most importantly, not break their heart. This, in fact, is a miracle. Because why? Because this person, through the ages, as we've seen, can walk within or be surrounded by darkness, can be surrounded by filth, can be surrounded by falsehood, yet he shines with the truthfulness of Hidayah, of guidance, with the truthfulness and the light of guidance. And this light, hopefully, will reflect upon everyone else. So, yes, technology has advanced, but the fact is that morality retrogression hasn't. If you look around society today, and these ethics, as we said before, can only be introduced through certain individuals, and that's why it becomes a miracle. For example, that the virtue of generosity. When I have a child from a very young age, and I show him consistently that, my son or my daughter take this money, put it in the sadaqah, and they ask me, why is this for? And you tell them that it's going to go and help people that are less fortunate than us. And this is a gradual implementation of an act. This child, what's the percentage of this child growing up and being generous? Honestly, any type of virtue that this person sees consistently, then that becomes implemented in him through the example. No technology taught him this. It was a human being. So that human being, and it can be the opposite. Imagine a child that is in the car with his father, and his father is one of those people that road rages all the time. Road rages all the time and swears and gets angry and hits. What's the percentage that child is going to do the same as his father? Is that instilling good morality? Well, it could be the opposite. Well, there's a father that sits there and someone cuts him off, and then the father actually gives an excuse. Son, this person, he could be in a hurry, or, he's probably having a bad day. He comes up with excuses. He doesn't fall down to that, because at the end of the day, to even have the virtue of controlling your anger is of great qualities. Because Imam Ali alayhi salam says, how many things have we done in ourselves and then we regret later? Why did I do this? Imam Ali alayhi salam says in the beautiful hadith, he says, Ayyakum wal ghadab. Beware of ghadab. For awwalaha junoon wa akhiruha nadam. Be wary of anger, because the start of it is craziness. Then after comes regret. Why did I do this? I'll tell you why you did this. Because you as a human being didn't then let your intellect rule over the power of anger and that of your passions. So this is a few examples that even the environment that we put in, they have shown, statistically have shown, people that come from households that there's domestic violence, for instance, there's a very good chance that child will follow the footsteps of his parents. It is. And I think I've mentioned this before, most serial killers actually came from disturbed families. Because their exemplars were people like that, people that had no real human value. They were actually, in fact, lower than that of an animal. Animals at least have instinct. Like, honestly, like a lion doesn't go and say, you know what, I'm going to hunt myself 20 deers and leave them on the side for after. He hunts when he needs to eat to survive. That's it. So when it comes to that of morality, when it comes to that, you have to be an exemplar. For everything, every step that you do and have an effect on someone, it has an endless ever effect. It was said once that a man was walking along the beach, alaykum salam, and there had been some kind of storm, and it was all these starfish on the shore. So the man and his friend started walking. Every so often he would pick up a starfish and throw it back into the water. And after a while, his mate goes to him, seriously, are you going to throw all these starfish into the water? Look how many there are. You're not going to make a difference. And he picks one more up and he threw it and he says, it made a difference to that one. It made a difference to that one, didn't it? He said, what he's trying to say is, no matter sometimes the task, you've got to start up step by step and instill this goodness into people. The way you look at ethics and the way to judge yourself, if you're ethical and if you have good moralities, imagine this. Imagine that your next decision is going to be something that is going to be publicized on every single broadcasting, internet, media outlet the very next day. It's going to be the front page, whatever you are. Whatever you're thinking about now, it's going to be publicized. that decision of yours, if people were to ask about you or ask about it, why you made it or why you did it, do you have an excuse for it or do you have an answer? This decision of yours, is it going to make a difference to mankind? The last question you should be asking about, this decision of yours or this thing you're going to make, this thing that you went forth to, would you want everyone else to do it? See, especially the last one, would you want everyone else to do it? So if it's an act of charity, yes, I would like everyone to do it. Maybe if it's an act of backbiting, no, I wouldn't want anyone to do it. If it's an act of stealing, no, I wouldn't want anyone to do it. So these ethics can come only through people like the Holy Prophet, like the Ahlul Bayt. If you look at the whole life of them, how many times through their ethics and morality did they change a person's attitude, even towards them and towards the religion? There was no computers back then, but they were the exemplars of instilling that morality in the individuals. I always thought, if the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam were here today with today's technology, how would they actually act? How would they use the technology to benefit mankind? You think about this. How would they do? Do you think that even though with technology, do you think it will let them, get to the point where they'll abuse it, or they think they'll use it against to the point where I'm going to use it to get so many likes or so many hits or so many people looking at my videos? Or do you think they would use it to enlist knowledge into people to wake them up? Of course they would use it for the right purposes. See, when you look at the Quran, when the Quran says, وَلَقَدْ ضَرَبْنَا لِلنَّاسِ, that we gave an example to the people, فِي هَذَا الْقُرْآنِ مِنْ كُلِّ مَثَلٍ, with every similitude. When it talks about here, it's talking about the examples when it comes to that of the person, the actual person themselves, and their ethics and morality. Because throughout the Quran, we can see many examples. We gave examples of people that had pride, people that were jealous. Yusuf's story gives an example pretty much of many modern day stories. That in this story, you had brothers that were jealous, brothers that wanted to kill him. At the end of the day, you had a father that was caring, the father that was patient. In the end, you had a brother that forgave them and said that the shaitan came between me and my brothers. But this whole story and the test, the test when he went into the room of Zulaykha, the temptation of committing, God forbid, a sexual act and a haram act and an adultery act, being patient in the prison. All these have to do with ethics. If you look at Surah Maryam, how many times God brings an example of the Prophet and he talks about their ethics. Ibrahim, that he was truthful. Idris, that he was truthful. Even before even explaining that he's a prophet. Musa was mukhlas, righteous, before explaining he was right. These have to do with ethics, to show you that the ethical part of it is of great. But when we look back at the example, one example before we head on, is that of kibr, pride. The first sin, and so, sometimes when I don't know if there's a movie that was out years ago, it was called The 7 Deadly Sins. And the first sin, which they had listed, is kibr, pride. We know the first sin, of course, that was introduced to mankind was what? Pride. Iblis prostrate in front of Adam. Why should I? You created me from smokeless fire. You created him from dirt. Why should I prostrate in front of him? I prostrated for you, Hadith says, between 5,000 to 7,000 years. 5,000 to 7,000 years. Why should I prostrate in front of this creature? Kibr. And he used qiyas. That's his opinion. He saw that smokeless fire or fire was better than dirt. In fact, when you look at it, dirt is actually better than fire. how much things that we live as human beings come from dirt. As humans. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. So that's the first thing. Iblis used qiyas, that he made the point that he thought he was better. Pride itself, when you break it down, to show you what happens when you break down pride into, like, dissect it, you see why it's a dangerous disease. First of all, people that suffer from kibr or pride are oversensitive. When I say oversensitive, they don't like to take criticism. They get irritated very easy. They hold grudges. This is what happens. They're like, that sore that you got on your hand, and it's kind of infected, and it touches it, and you get really very sensitive. That's how people of pride are. So another thing that pride people have, and why am I listing this? Because you might not have all of them, but you might have one of them. Another thing that people of pride are is they are people that easy don't forgive. They hold on to grudges, and pretty much like the sin one, they hold on to grudges. These are the people they have when people have pets, you have a pet, you feed it, you protect it, and you look after it. These people like that. When people have a pride issue, they hold these vices with them, and they actually look after it, and they bowl it up on the inside. The third thing about people that have pride, people that have so much pride, are people that are unteachable. You can't teach them. They think they know everything. Like Iblis, he thought he knew everything. Iblis is that unteachable and that cursed. The hadith says that it was in the time of Musa alayhi salam. He came to Musa and he said to Musa, you know what, do you reckon God will forgive me? And he said, God's all forgiving and all merciful. He said to him, please, could you ask him? So Musa goes and asks God, because of course, Kalim Allah used to talk to God. God said to him, yeah, I'll forgive him. He said to him, tell him to go to the grave of Adam and prostrate there. And when Musa told Adam this, he said, Musa, I never prostrated to Adam when he was alive. I'm going to prostrate to him when he's dead? No way. Still, pride, kibr. So these people, you can't teach them. Secondly, a person that has kibr, he sees faults in everyone else but himself. He sees he is perfect in all ways. And subhanAllah, if you can label kibr, it is the most, you can probably say the most beautified sin. When I say beautified sin, you can't beautify sin. Yes, for them, some people that they see pride as a beauty. It can. Why is it a beautified sin? For three reasons. First of all, it makes, as a sin, it makes that person blind to his own faults. Secondly, it makes him deaf to criticism or to being taught that he's doing something wrong. Thirdly, it blackens his heart. That's it. And we know that the heart is like what Imam Muhammad al-Baqir alayhi salam, he said, al-qalb haram Allah. That the heart is what? The sanctuary of God. So don't let anything live in the sanctuary of God except the love of God. But the question here, before I finish off, is there good pride? Is there good pride? Okay, yeah. So what we have, the psychologists have said there's two types of pride. There's one we call authentic pride. That is something that if I have done something in the halal way, and I've studied in a halal way, or worked in a halal way, and I've achieved a certain goal, there's nothing wrong with being proud of it. I thank God Almighty that He's given me the opportunity. This is good pride. There's nothing wrong with that. The other one is what they call hubristic pride. Hubristic pride is the pride that instills arrogance in you. That instills that I am this self-centerism, that I am better than anyone else, that I should be treated in a better way. This is the bad pride. In fact, Remember a while ago, to show you what pride does to an individual, remember a famous sportsman, he's still around now, by the name of Tiger Woods, a golf player. Listen to his statement when he got caught. Tell me if I'm mistaken here or not, but tell me about the pride that he talks about in this statement, even though he's come out and confessed. He says, I knew what I was doing, because remember he did all those acts with those girls in that he was married. He goes, I knew what I was doing was wrong, but I had convinced myself that these values, I don't have to follow them. Listen to the words. That it's okay for you to go to sleep around with other people, even though you are married. If your wife had done it, you would care now, wouldn't you? He said, I convinced myself, or I got to convince us that the people that I did not have any thought for the people that I was hurting around me. I was in that position, he said, and it's always I. He goes, I was in that position that I thought, because of my position, I can get away with anything. And lastly, he said, I felt because I had worked so hard and got to become this famous sportsman, that it was okay for me to do the temptation. Is this pride or arrogance? And how many times he used the word I? You know, Imam Muhammad al-Baqir alayhi salam sums it up what he says here. He says that when a single morsel of pride enters your heart, then this actually has an effect on your aql, on your intellect. You don't think anymore. You know, another person that showed you that when in a sense of power was the so-called President Bill Clinton, when he had that, again, affair with an intern, Monica Lewinsky, you know, at the White House. Years later, when he asked, why did you do it for? You're a married man, you're a president. You know what he said? Listen to this statement. Because I could. Because I could. Because I'm the president of the United States. Because I've got power, I can do this. This is what people think. These people, to show the disease of kibr, what it does to an individual. Imam Ali alayhi salam sums it up to us. He goes, let go of kibr. Put down your arrogance and remember your grave. These people have not remembered the hereafter. You know, when Imam Ali alayhi salam walks once in the cemetery and he goes to the grave of a dead person, he says, Assalamu alaikum ahl al-kubur. Oh, peace be upon you, O people of the grave. He said, do you want me to converse with you? The Imam's telling to the people in the grave, want me to converse with you? Let me tell you, all your wealth has now been distributed to other people. You know, when people, I have this, I own this, you know, I built this, all this. Sometimes it's good, but it's not I. You should replace the I with we. We, meaning God has given me the ability to do this. And hopefully I did this with sincerity. Then the Imam goes to him, know that your houses have now been occupied by other people. And also, for those of you that have been married, know that your partners have remarried now. And then he turns over to the companions and he says to them, do you know if these people could talk back to you, do you know what they'll say to you? Do you know what they'll say to you? They say, فَتَزَوَّدُوا فَإِنَّ خَيْرَ الزَّادِ التَّقْوَى. If they could talk back to you, they would say that the best provision that you need in this grave, especially in the world, is taqwa. Remember, the same Imam that said, oh, Bani Adam, Miskin Bani Adam, that the first of him is a nutfa, that first of him, when he's first born, you're a piece of sperm. وَآخِرُهُ جِيثًا. That at the end of it, you're a carcass. That if people would come and smell you several days after, they would run away from you. He says, how this Bani Adam that walks on this earth, that he can't even control his own sustenance and ability. Honestly, can you stop yourself from getting old now? Or your bones from getting tired? And then he says, in the end of the day, he can't even repel death. And he still has the nerve to walk on this earth with kibr, with pride. He said, the same Imam goes on to say that there's two things that will perish Bani Adam. He says the first one is khawf al-faqr. The first is, People said, because I was poor, I did this. And the last one, he said, وَطَلَبَ الْفَخْرِ. The people that go after pride, to say like, I'm doing this because I want, these days probably with social media, I want so many hits, I want so many views, and so forth. No, that in that grave of yours, the only thing that will be accepted, the only thing, is not your pride, is your humbleness, is your piety, is your righteous deeds. This is what makes an individual. So, yes, use technology, but most importantly, use the amthal that the Quran has given you. So what? So you build the inner thing that God holds in value, the ethics and morality, that know that on the day of judgment, that we have a hadith that on the judgment, one of the heaviest things, fil mizan al-husn al-khulq. Do you know that? That one of the heaviest things on the day of judgment is in fact the way you do it with people, your ethics and morality. Is this what we are not striving for? Anyway, we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala first of all to hasten the reappearance of Imam al-Hujjah alayhi salam. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He makes us of the ones that are righteous to Him, that we do not fall into the vice of kibr and other vices such as greed and envy. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and la tukhrajna min hadhihi ad-dunya hatta tarda anna, that He does not take us off this world except that He is pleased with us. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He gives us the ziyarah of the Imam of the Ahlul Bayt, khasa Imam Hussein fil dunya wa shafa'atun fil akhirah. Hadhi wa akhir da'wana an alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen wa sallallahu ala Muhammad wa ala ahli bayt tayyibin at-tahirin.